Hello, I'm Mike Potnopoulos, academic coach for Springdale Public Schools, and today I want to talk to you about citing your documents in a DBQ and also trying to do that that historical information, the intended audience, the purpose, and the point of view of a document, and how you can get points for that, your evidence beyond the document, and then maybe try to look at what complexity might look like. Um, and so let's go ahead and hop in here. And if you haven't already watched the other video on the document analysis themselves, of us going through the documents, you need to probably stop and go do that, because this probably won't make a whole lot of sense if you don't know what the documents mean. Um, and I will say that again, and I'll say that until it's all over with, if you will. That is, you can't write a DBQ without reading the documents first. You can't write the thesis statement without reading the documents first and understanding how they work with the prompt. And again, I would say to anybody that's listening, if you're ever going to just have as a bell ringer a moment of a document analysis, or you're going to maybe go over a couple of documents in class that day, just to do that out there freelance is, unless you've got a specific, uh, you know, a specific meaning behind it, okay. But I would always encourage to have a prompt to go with the documents so that the students can get into the habit, into the practice, and into just the knee jerk reaction that in order for me to work with this document, I've got to work with it back to a question. It's never just going to sit here and just be out here loose. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop in here and get started. The other day the other day I sent these videos out. We had this question: evaluate the extent to which the environment and or knowledge of the environment affected imperial expansion in that time period. And so we went over the documents, and we found out that documents 1, 2, and 7. And again, let's just back up here. Sorry. When I see that phrase right there, evaluate the extent, I'm thinking of some form of comparison. There is an extent, and I got to evaluate that extent to a large extent, to a small extent. And some kids, they get under the notion that maybe they can kind of, there were some that there was, there was pluses and minuses, or there was positives and negatives and things of this nature. They get real general like that, and that's not that I've never seen that work on a DBQ as far as a thesis statement, or for a long essay question. Um, Whenever they have that, they want you to make that. They want to make that, they want to have that argument, that definable argument, that thing that you're going to argue for the rest of your paper. And so here's what ours was in this one. This is a decent one, and I'll highlight this. I highlighted this the other day, and I like to indent, so let's indent. Although there are some empires, and I'm not going to read that to you, but you can see this is how we're going to build our essay from henceforth. There's going to be a paragraph that talks about documents 1, 2, and 7, and in that paragraph, it looks like empires will move deeper, or they shift their growth because of the environment. And then there's those documents 3, 4, 5, and 6. What they do is they go ahead and they just keep on building. And so that's what the next paragraph is going to talk about. So there's your comparison. Instead of writing 7 small book reports out there, or 7 individual little, this is how I understand the documents, I'm working them back to the question. And then the next thing that I'm doing here is I'm using the word context right there. And I'll go ahead and put that in bold, and I'll underline it. I love that, because that tells me that tells the reader, you, the student, are telling the reader, here comes my contextualization moment. And that what you're saying there is, here is here is where this question came from. This is what was going on that led up to this question, or to this historical phenomenon. That is to say, that's what's putting this entire question into context. So use the word. If they're going to ask you to do contextualization, use the word. It's that simple, I think. And it's no longer a muddy moment for anybody. So it's extremely clear. And boy, do we need that on the day of writing, right? Anytime that we can be clear and concise and right to it. There's your whole contextualization moment. Um, Again, many nations like Spain, Portugal, and Ottomans were at their beginning. The religious differences, they spread new ideas. Combine this with China retreating from oceanic voyages, vacuums in trade. Again, I'm just kind of talking about what's going on in 1450, what led to 1450, why that time change. And by the way, this is a great drill, I think, for especially end of the year drill for my AP World History teachers. Why do we start an era and why do we stop the era? If you can start to do that, if you can go through that, you can write a good contextualization moment on just about any essay they throw at you, because students will now know why you moved from period one to period two to period three. This is why are we moving here and there. Again, now you start to understand why we're here, and that's what they're asking for us to do. So there's our first 2 points. We've got 2 points now. I got a good thesis statement. That is to say, something that I can stand on and write about forever and ever. And my essay is going to be built off of that. My next paragraph, you better believe, is going to talk about documents 1, 2, and 7. And then the paragraph after that is going to talk about 3, 4, 5, and 6. Or I may break that one up because it's such a big uh, event of 4 documents that, and I want to show the extent. I want to show that it's a bigger extent. I want to show that it's a larger idea than the other one. So again, to evaluate the extent, that's you evaluating it and doing what the prompt is asking you to do. So anyway, so this is what that might look like to a student's writing. This is my handwriting. This is me writing this, and so um, you can see kind of what they would allow or what they want. And I'm not trying to talk over anybody's head. I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room, or I'm not trying to dumb it down or play it up. This is just kind of how it goes. This is kind of how they are. This is kind of what I see from good essays. When I read them, when I go to the reading every year, this is kind of what kids do. And so again, um, there you go. Let's see. I don't want to read everything to you, and you can read this in your own time and pause me and read this all you want. But you can see how I'm identifying the document. I'll try to put them in quote. I'll try to put the document in some sort of parentheses, and then I'll also mention the document's author. For example, Menezes is disheartened by what he finds in North Africa. He is basically begging the Portuguese to move on. Now, some kids might stop there and think, there, I've done POV. Yeah, but you didn't relate it back to the prompt. You see, you got to talk about how that goes back to the prompt. And so that's where we start to get into trouble. We think we've done something, but it just takes a lot of writing to explain what you're thinking, and um, you can't rest on the thought that I'm going to assume for you. It's your job to convince your reader that you know what you're talking about. And so here he is. He is no doubt is supplying ideas to Prince Henry the Navigator back in Portugal regarding his map making and exploration efforts as the Portuguese continue to explore Africa and its world environment too. I put that in parentheses just in case my reader, whoever that is thinking that I'm off course and not talking about the environment. I am. And so here comes that hip moment. This is that historical information or that historical setting that this document sets in and how it relates back to the prompt. Also, initially, the Portuguese are exploring Africa because of the efforts of Mansa Musa and his proliferation of gold and handing out riches as he continued on his Hajj 100 to 150 years earlier. See right there, I can't remember when he did what he did, but I know it was before this time period. And so I'm throwing that in there. And again, if that's a little bit wrong, okay, but it's really right in the fact that it was Mansa Musa and his gold that attracted the attention of the world. No wonder we need to get to Africa, said Europe, said European entities like Spain, who finally comes together, like Portugal, etc. We got to get here. And then, of course, later on, we're going to have to get to, India and find that route to India. Anyway, So this is our EBD. This is our evidence beyond the document. This is a good piece of evidence beyond the document. It's events like that which made the Portuguese and the Spanish explore all sorts of new to them environments. Boom. I got to keep talking about environments. I'm talking about environments, and I'm talking about what led people to go to those environments. Notice I didn't mention this stuff up here in my context. I kind of saved some bullets for something later on. And again, this is nothing I talked about up here in context. So again, you can't double dip. You can't take stuff that you talked about in context and hopefully it'll work again later on. It won't. It's got to be something fairly newish. It's got to be a whole nother thought process, so to speak. And so there you go. That's it. And now I'm off and running. I've got a document under my belt. So right now, let's take a look at the points that you've created for yourself. Okay. You've got a point for thesis. You got a point for contextualization. And if you were to stop and throw your pen down and say, I'm done writing, and you now have got a point for evidence beyond the doc. Okay. And you've got a check mark that you've used a doc and you understand it. Okay. And that you've used this historical and you started an analysis on a doc. Remember, you got to do that 3 times. And here we've done the historical situation behind a doc. So there you go. So now we've done that. And by the way, a good topic sentence like this one up here is the beginning of using a doc and showing someone that you're starting to understand the doc. And then when you start to support it just a little bit down here, you're always going to get that document used piece because you set it up here in your thesis or your topic sentence. If your topic sentence just starts barreling in to start talking about document 1, document 2, document 3, boy, you better be good. You better be good because you haven't created a topic sentence with which to show your understanding. And of course, complexity is out the door at that point. So again, get those topic sentences of what that whole paragraph is going to say. And again, sometimes kids will take this right here and just lift it. They'll take their thesis statement and turn around and just lift the whole thing and repeat it onto their topic sentence and then start shredding that apart. And again, here's another piece. That's what the next paragraph would be. But again, just lift that whole thing, just rewrite it. I know that sounds silly, but again, it's called good writing. Okay. You've told them what you're going to talk about. Now you must talk about it. And then, you tell them what you talk about. So there you go. Okay. Moving on. So we've done document 1. Now we're doing document 2 to continue. Posh, the Ottoman Empire. There I am putting in parentheses doc 2. Wants to push forward with the Grand Canal or a Suez Canal as to fulfill his political ambitions as Grand Vizier to the Ottoman Khan. He no doubt wants to stop enemies of the state, of which is, of course, the Portuguese. He falsely accuses the Portuguese of being all over India, when, of course, they were only in the rivers and parts of barely there anyway by 1568 as the document was written. So again, here we see document 2. It's being used. You already had an understanding of it because you put it up there in the topic sentence, and now you've shown POV. You've shown that there's a little bit of a nuance to this author in the way he's talking and why he's using and doing what he's doing. And there's even some history down here. There's more of this that you can use, but again, it's not needed. This piece is not needed down here, but it does help just for good writing. If you know it, spell it out. If you don't know it, move on. So there's that next little piece of history, which is, of course, that the Ottoman Empire is in a continual retreat back to Istanbul as soon as it was created. Almost, it is a large land empire. We get that, but they can't maintain it. Their political system can't maintain it, and they're going to be around till World War I, but they're almost always fragmenting and falling back into Istanbul, which is a historical moment. And then here's doc 3. So now you've used 3 docs. And finally, the English, doc 7, are like the Portuguese. Again, this is all still one paragraph. It's my paragraph that talks about those countries and those empires that were trying to empire build, and the environment influenced them to go to different places. And I'm just continuing on with that. There's my parentheses. The English are like the Portuguese, and the Ottomans in that environment seems to dictate to them where to go. Hillary, I thought it was Harris. It was Hillary, sorry. So I marked that out. And that's a good point there too. What happens if If you do make a mistake, just mark it out like I did right there. As a reader, I'm trained to read this part and not that part. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm just going to read Hillary seems to be misinformed about the war. Climate of the Caribbean, and even as late as 1759, the British were misinformed about malaria and mosquitoes. No wonder the British and its citizens and explorers seem to concentrate their efforts in a more temperate climate of the New England colonies in the Americas. There's the H to document 3. Now I have completely and successfully talked about 3 documents and used them. So there is another point. And of those 3 documents, I have analyzed them correctly. So there's another point. So again, if I stopped what I'm doing right now, I got a point for a thesis, I got a point for contextualization, and I've used 3 documents. There's another point. I've used evidence beyond the doc. There's a 4th point. And now, oh yeah, and now I've also analyzed 3 of those documents successfully. So there's 5 points. I've already got 5 points and I've written 2 paragraphs. So to get the 6th point, I got to talk about 6 documents. So I've got to hit 3 more documents, and I don't need to analyze them anymore. I can just kind of regurgitate them now. Now my writing ought to kind of pick up. It ought to start to kind of pick up its pace a little bit, if you will. And so there you go. You might be thinking up to this point, man, it's a lot of writing, but it's a lot of stuff you got to do. So, but now that you've completed that rubric, now you can start to kind of speed it up. However, I will caution you that what if you're wrong on one of your ideas? What if one of your hip moments didn't work? That's why it's kind of good to get maybe a 4th one or maybe a 5th one. What if your evidence beyond the doc wasn't right? What if that was kind of a miscue? Okay, then write another one. Then maybe you can come up with something else. So let's get into another paragraph. And so now we're looking how I transition from that one paragraph that was the environment affects those people by telling them where to go. These guys, however, there were those empires like Russia, Spain, and the Dutch and China who would go on to explore, build empire, and navigate deep into new territories, no matter what the environments may have suggested. Period. Boom. Now I've created a whole new line of thinking. I'm evaluating the extent. I am performing complexity. For those of you wondering, where does my complexity points come from? It will come from the fact that I've got a good essay that is connected and talking about, in this case, how environment affects empire building. How about that? And I'm not getting lost in the conversation of just rattling about documents and talking about documents, nor am I forgetting documents and just talking about history. So again, and then now let's see here. What do I do? Oh, another hip moment. For example, I can't say that guy's name. Palma de Ayala and his manuscript sent back to the King of Spain, document 3, in parentheses again, is evidence that New Spain was growing and needed to be further explored. And again, that's a kind of a historical moment because this is New Spain. We're talking about New Spain. And the Spanish will even tap into the Incas' use of the Mita system. Here comes a hip moment. Here comes another historical setting, a system of labor so as to continue to manipulate bridges, roads, and the environment that they were learning. No doubt the Spanish would use remaining Native Americans to serve their Spanish needs. I'm hinting at the fact that many Native Americans are going to die because of diseases, of course, like smallpox. So again, I could keep talking about that. Another historical evidence beyond the doc if you want. And then finally, here I am talking about 4 and 5. I don't talk about China. You can talk about China all you want. I would love to talk about China, but at this point, I'm probably boring you to death. And I'm stopping to not write about them just for time's sake. But here, look how simple the docs are now that I'm starting to get to continue the Russians and the Dutch to move full steam ahead, no matter if the environment was inhospitable or if it was advantageous. Again, use your own words. No matter if the environment was awful or if the environment was, sunny and mild, whatever you want to do. For example, Bekator or Bekatov Doc 4 was griping about cold weather. Notice how I talk about the documents in a humanistic perspective. He's begging, he's complaining, he's griping. These are telling my reader, I understand the documents. These are telling me, the reader, that I'm just not regurgitating stuff that I'm reading, but I actually read them and I understand them, because that's what he's doing. He is griping. He wants a raise. Go back and look at that document. That's what he's doing. He's saying, I want a raise. I'm out here busting my rear end for you guys, and I'm getting nothing in return. I'd like a raise, if you don't mind. And the Russians soon unrepeated, but this is the part that they don't talk about in the document that we know about. So let's talk about it. We know that in the future, the Russians are going, under Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, build a massive land empire connected by a train system on the very Siberia that this guy is exploring. Evidence beyond the dock, or HIP, whatever you want to do there. There it is. Also, from the positive reports of the environment, like Von Reed's document 5 regarding the environment, India no doubt helped the Dutch East Indies Company to come to India for all the trade goods that he is describing. Again, boom. And again, right here is where I pick up my pen and start talking about China. And then I would go, and finally, there's those F words that I love. First off, furthermore, finally, um, from the beginning, furthermore, final, whatever you want. Again, we love those. Just to show a reader that we're in sync, and that we're concise, and that we're. And again, if I would have written about China here, and talked about how China was a growing land empire, and how China wanted and was very insecure because it's being led by the Qing dynasty, which is a Manchurian dynasty, they're probably going to lie about any report they have about the environment anyway, because they're insecure around the scholar. Around the scholar gentry who they're competing with in the royal courts, because they're authentically Han. The Manchurians or the Qing are outsiders, they're foreigners. This is going to lead to why we have the massive problems with China at the turn of the century in 1900, because you do have foreign people who are so adhering to the old Chinese customs, so that they won't be found out as imposters, so to speak. Another story for another day. Anyway, there you go. Great DBQ, good docs, and again, you've got to get used to this idea of writing. You must spell it out for your audience, whoever that is. You can't assume that they're going to bridge gaps for you, or assume things for you, or they'll see that I'm comparing that. Well, did you compare it? Well, there you go. So there's points. There's your points for all of those things, for document usage, for analysis, for 3 or 4 of them in this case. Complexity points were well on their way, and so hopefully this helps, and you get to see what it was like to, or what it's like, what those documents look like. And again, teachers, I highly recommend this, that you do what we would call in my classroom a perfect DBQ day, and that is to say, we all sit and I write on the board in longhand like this, on several boards that I have, this DBQ. And it may take 2 days to write it, because you're just, you're moving and kids are writing, and it's a quiet day, and you're going and back and forth, and kids stop you and go, now, what does that word? Because I can't read your writing and stuff like that. I get that. But we call it a perfect DBQ so that kids can see what the DBQ process looks like. And we start to do this maybe in November. We spend maybe 2 or 3 days going over all the documents and just mushing them into that prompt, and then we spend the day writing it, so that my really bright kids know now what I call it a finished golf swing looks like. So they're not sitting there not ever knowing what it looks like. No, now my best know what it looks like. My kids that are in the middle have something to shoot for, and they'll even get better. And then the kids down that are my lower students, perhaps, they can now find nuggets to kind of grab a hold of. They can at least do the thesis, and at least do the context, and at least talk about documents and get those points, And I would say at a minimum, we can all do that. We can all do thesis, contextualization, and then just talk about documents 6 times. That, these do that, those do this. And so there's 4 points right there. There's 4. Maybe you don't know how to interact history with what you're doing. Okay. Maybe you don't see the history beyond that, and maybe you don't see the bigger picture, and that's going to be tough to do the complex or the contextualization. But you get my point. I mean, we should get to where we can get 4 points on this, I think. So anyway, I hope this helps. Again, my name is Mike Fontopoulos. I'm the academic coach for Springdale Public Schools here in Springdale, Arkansas, and I love trying to get kids ready for the Advanced Placement World History test. And hopefully this helped you. If you have any questions, please reach out, and love to chat with you, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.